Financial freedom is something which is discussed almost all the time on YouTube and in general life, and is something that many of us dream of. But how do you actually go about achieving it? There's a few things that you can do, and you may have heard these before, but I'm going to put my twist on them so that they're a bit more interesting. So, first things first, reduce your costs.
Yes, obviously. Who doesn't want to reduce their costs? And yes, I already knew that, Max. What else are you going to tell me?
Well, one of the biggest costs that you will probably have is your accommodation. So where circumstances allow, and yes, I know we're all in different circumstances, I'm not going to ask you to change your life. Where circumstances allow, see if you can move into a cheaper place, or whether you can negotiate a cheaper rent or a cheaper place to go, which still works for you. So even there could be different ways around this. So say for example that you live about an hour commute away from your work. What if you moved a little bit closer and maybe the area isn't as nice which you're in, but would it save you the money on the commute? Would it save you the time which you could then spend doing other things which could then increase your money further down the line? Possibly. Obviously, it's a lifestyle choice and it's dependent on the person because we're all different, we're all in different circumstances, situations, we all have different preferences. And yes, the accommodation is probably one of the major things that impacts all of us and is going to have a big effect on your quality of life. So obviously do what's right for you, but sometimes it helps to hear these things because you don't necessarily think like, oh, maybe I could move somewhere cheaper. You feel stuck in the place that you are. But there is always a way out, and it's always worth having a look out, especially at the moment. House prices are absolutely astronomical and they have been going up all the time. So if you're thinking about buying a house, then maybe look at renting somewhere and you might be able to find a better deal, especially if circumstances allow. Things like house shares can really help to reduce the cost because the landlord will still get the money from the cumulative house share, but you might get a slightly cheaper cost and you can always get house shares with bills included. So if you're in the UK, you can use websites such as Spare Room to find some really nice house shares. That's how I found the house share that I'm currently in. And it was really helpful because you can just have your rent come out all in one payment and possibly get the bills included as well. This can be a really good way to consider reducing some of your costs. Another big cost that a lot of people have is their food bill. I'm no chef myself, but I think one of the things that you can do is to get creative. So many people, when they get back from work, they think, oh, I've got to cook, I've got to go food shopping, and then they get lazy, and so they end up getting a takeaway or they end up getting food out, which is fine in moderation. And if that's what adds value to your life and that's the things that you enjoy, then by all means go for it. But if you're on a path to financial freedom and it's something that you want to pursue further, then certainly one of the things that you could maybe consider is making sure that you do your meal preparation, and this all comes down to planning. So what I tend to do is I have a clear plan of what I'm going to cook for the week. I make sure that I have a shopping list, so when I go shopping I just get the bits that I need, and then I'll cook all my meals for the entire week on a Sunday or on a Saturday, and then I'm good to go. Not only do I save a lot of time, I save a lot of money by planning the meals that I'm going to have, and you can plan them to be super, super cheap as well. So some of you may think, this guy's boring, because basically I tend to eat the same thing, so I'll have the same thing for lunches pretty much all week, and then I'll have the same thing for dinners almost all week. So you might think that that's boring, and that might not work for you, which is fine. But again, it helps me to keep my costs even lower and is helping me to go onto that path for financial freedom. Another good tip for kind of the keeping your costs low as well, on the food front, if you do fancy a meal out or you fancy, spending less but you want the food out, there are plenty of good offers and deals out there. You can use browser extensions such as Honey to find discounts online. I also have a taste card, which means I can get a bit of a discount at quite a lot of restaurants if I'm going out for food. Or there are apps such as Too Good To Go, where basically you save food wastage, you pay a flat cost, and depending on the restaurant will depend on how much that you pay, and then you basically get a bag full of whatever stuff is left at the end of the day. And you can get some really good stuff. Like the other day, I went to Greg's. It's a bakery in case you're not from the UK, and I paid about £2.60, and for that I got 4 sausage rolls, a tuna mayonnaise sandwich, a cheese and ham sandwich, 2 Belgian buns, 2 muffins, 4 like custard dessert things, and 3 glazed donuts, and I got all that for £2.60, and I was saving the wastage which would have gone in the bin. So too good to go is fantastic. If you want to get a lot of food for a little amount, then that's really good to save you some money, because you can get some massive amounts of food for a very, very little cost. And especially if you don't fancy cooking yourself, those sort of things can be really, really good. One of the other things, so the second thing that you can do to kind of help towards your path of financial freedom is to start some kind of side hustle. Now, I get it, especially in today's day and age, not everyone wants to hustle and to spend all their free time doing things which maybe they don't necessarily enjoy or don't enrich their life. And people they work so that they can live, and that they make money so that they can do the things that they wish to do outside of work, which is fine. However, if things don't go in your favor and worst case scenario, you end up jobless, then hopefully you would have something to fall back on. Even if it was a small amount of income, you could possibly turn this into something more major, or put more of your efforts from your side project into your main project while you pick up something else in the meantime. And you never know, you might be able to make it into a full-time business or something along those lines. Now, I'm not going to go into all the specific ones of what you can actually do in order to do side hustles. I mean, there's literally thousands out there. If you Google side hustle ideas, I mean, realistically, that's what I would have done anyway if I was going to kind of go through these. There's going to be loads of stuff out there. But I think the important thing to do with this is that you do something that you enjoy. So for example, I've got this little YouTube channel, which hopefully somewhere down the line, I mean, obviously I'm doing it because I enjoy making videos, and I think also it's important to track your kind of journey and your progress. And this is a good way to do this. I mean, I'll probably look back in 10 years time and go, what the hell was that haircut? What was he thinking? But it's also a good way for me, if the worst comes to the worst, I could pursue this more full time and see if I was able to make money from it and turn it into a more full-time gig. There are loads of different things out there. You could sell pictures, you could set up your own Etsy shop, you could sell stuff on eBay, you could try flipping stuff or merching stuff. If you've got a skill or a talent that you have that you're particularly good at, you could share this on Upwork or freelance sites. You could set up your own business, you could create a website. There's so many different things to do, and there's a multitude of ways to make money. So those are kind of the main 2 things which you can do in order to help you to get more financially free, is making sure that you reduce your costs and increase your income. But I think a third one, which again maybe is a bit under the radar, because the other 2 are quite obvious, and I'm sure they've been covered by millions of financial YouTubers before, and I'm not gonna sit here and pretend like I'm an absolute expert on everything ever. I mean, that's the whole point of this channel, is to make sure that I'm learning and I'm understanding, and I'll be the first to say that I don't know everything, and I'm not expecting you to subscribe because you know, you think I'm some sort of guru who's Einstein's godchild or something, which, by the way, subscribe, because I'm not Einstein's godchild. Anyway, the third one would be to get creative. So I don't know whether anyone here has seen the TV show Extreme Cheapskates, but I really enjoy seeing some of the ways which they get creative in terms of their money saving and their frugal living to be financially free. So one of the ways that you may wish to pursue this and to kind of get creative, there's things such as the FIRE community, which some people like, some people hate. So that stands for Financial Independence, Retire Early. So if you're interested in, you know, financial freedom, then the likelihood is that you've heard of that or you've engaged with that before you've come to this video. But that movement has lots of communities in there where they'll share their tips and stuff. I'm sure there's Facebook pages, Reddit pages, and all the rest of it where people are all in this together and they're all looking. But I think the trouble is when you get together as a community, it can become a bit almost cult-like. So you know, maybe that's one of the reasons why people don't necessarily engage and like those so much. But as I said, with Extreme Cheapskates, I think it's an interesting example, and they take the well, I mean, it's in the name, extreme, isn't it? But they take the money saving thing to the next level and to the absolute nth degree. But some of the things on there are actually really useful, and we can learn some lessons from there. I mean, there's a guy, one of the guys on there, he was showering, I think, or bathing like once a week or once a month, but then he was using his water, he was recycling the water that he was bathing in to wash his dishes, and he would reuse the water for everything in his house. So like flushing the toilets and heating the house, for washing his dishes. And I'm not gonna lie, that is pretty disgusting. So obviously don't do that unless, you know, for whatever reason you want to. But you can use the ideas there and kind of get creative to save money. Don't necessarily think that just because it's not normal or it's not the done thing that you can't do it. So that's where it comes into the too good to go. That's where you might say, okay, well, instead of like putting the heating on when it's not actually that cold, I'll put an extra coat on for the time being. And that might save you a few pounds here and there, but I know it's not going to necessarily make the difference. But all these small things will add up over the long term. And especially if you can kind of use that money to invest or to kind of make more money further down the line, and you know, you can utilize your side hustle. All of these things together, and again, you know, being creative with your own situation will be dependent on you. I'm not going to give you necessarily specific examples, but think outside the box. Don't necessarily think, for example, you know, that just because this one thing has not met its purpose anymore, that it's no longer useful for you. You might keep it and then you might do something else with it further down the line. You might be able to upcycle it or to sell it even somewhere on Facebook Marketplace, for example. The bottom line is that in order to be financially free, it's not an overnight process. It's not a kind of get rich quick thing. All of these little steps and things that you can do will contribute towards your long-term goal of getting financially free. And that's it. That's exactly it. All of these things in combination will help you to be more financially free over the long term. Compound interest is a long-term thing, but it's surprising how much the benefits of that can add up. And the more things that you can do the earlier on, if you wish to achieve financial freedom, the better position that you're going to be in. And I know you've probably heard that a million times, and I'm preaching to the converted, but long-term game, do not forget that financial freedom doesn't happen overnight, and all these little steps that you do will help to contribute towards that. Okay, thank you for watching. Hope you enjoyed. Like and subscribe, and I'll see you in the next video.